Hi guys, good evening everyone. I hope you can see me and hear me clearly. Okay, there is a lot of background noise. Let Shubham sir come and okay guys, so let us start with the session. I hope you can see me and hear me clearly. Okay, perfect. Shubham sir, okay. Uh, just let me know if you can hear me as well.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
ओके परफेक्ट चलिए आज का सेशन स्टार्ट करते हैं शुभम सर फर्स्ट आई थिंक यू कैन टॉक अबाउट अ लिटिल अबाउट what we are supposed to be taking our doubts on and then we'll start.
Right. So for this UPSC option for the subject of commerce optional, we have two important topics for today. One is the buyback of securities, very important topic from financial accounting. And the other important topic that we have chosen is accounting standards. So these are the two topics that we are going to discuss. I'm going to quickly give a brief about both these topics, and then we can probably take up the doubts which have come up to us in the form of Google form. So when it comes to buyback of securities, there are two set of questions that can be asked. One is, what are the various conditions for going for a buyback of securities? Very, very important question. And if you go through a past year analysis, you would realize that this question has been repeated many times. So there are in all approximately 10 to 12 conditions which are necessary for buyback, such as post buyback, it has to be in the ratio of 2:1. Post buyback, the securities will have to be cancelled. Resolution has to be passed from the board of directors as well as from the shareholders in general meeting. So these are some of the conditions which have to be issued, have to be complied with before going for a buyback. So one is this very prominent question. Second could be asked is, what are the various sources that can be used for buyback? So whether you can go for a fresh issue of shares, whether you can make utilization of securities premium or not, what are the other sources that can be utilized in terms of free reserves or other reserves and surplus? That is again a very prominent question. And the third kind of question that can be asked from this particular topic is your numerical, your full-fledged numerical that usually comes up for 10-15 marks. So for them, you just have to understand the basic journal entries, which I think Harneet sir has already taught beautifully. And there you just have to remember the three basic golden rules, three basic principles of debit credit. And using those golden rules, you will be able to pass those journal entries. So these are the important questions which can be asked on the topic of buyback. If I come to accounting standards, there are selective accounting standards which have been mentioned in your syllabus. And a lot of students often have this question, sir, do we have to prepare numerical also? Do we have to prepare theory also? So I'm taking that question in advance. If you look at the past 8 to 10 years of accounting standard, numericals as of now has not been asked. the very common question that is being asked is that write a short note on depreciation, write a short note on, let's say, amalgamation. But since it's a very, what do you say, it's a very unexpected and uncertain paper, we can expect anything. I'm sure Anuj Sir is going to throw light on this. So my suggestion would be that all those accounting standards for which you're already reading the chapters in financial accounting. For example, let's say you are learning the basic concepts of depreciation in terms of numerical. You are learning the concept of amalgamation, mergers, and acquisition. You are learning the basic concept of cash flow statement and valuation of inventory, the FIFO-LIFO method, and the weighted average stock method. All of these concepts, what you have learned, the same is going to be applicable in your accounting standards numerical. So though in the previous few years, numericals have not been asked, but still, if you want, what you just have to do is all those numericals and conceptual portions which are there alongside these accounting standards, just brush up them at least once. So that, let's say tomorrow it becomes an unexpected day, it's a bad day for you, and UPSC asks these numericals, you will be able to solve. So I think these are the two kinds of questions, and these are the two major topics that we were to discuss today, sir.
Perfect. कुछ questions हैं, let's pick up those questions. AS 13 अकाउंटिंग फॉर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, कॉस्ट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, बस ये क्वेश्चन पूछा है. आई थिंक क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा, टॉपिक पूछ लिया है. दिस इज आस्क्ड बाय अंजना. So if you can throw some light on this.
Now, see, when we talk about cost of investments, basically how are these investments going to be valued? That is going to be the important question. Now, ideally, if you understand it, this particular topic is not there in terms of, what do we say, in terms of numerical. But having said that, when you're making an investment into any kind of investment, whether it is a short-term investment, whether it is a long-term investment, the important part is that there is going to be various components of cost of investment. That is to say precisely that what is going to be the purchase cost, what is going to be the other aspects which are to be taken into consideration, such as the carrying amount, whether the investment is a short-term investment or it is a long-term investment, what are the basic disclosure requirements that have to be taken care of. So these are some small elements that you have to understand, and you will have to be very clear in terms of the year domain. So let's say if I say that any investment which is kept, which is being held by a person or an individual or an institution for a period of 1 year, that becomes as a short-term current investment, or let's say you call it a current investment. But if the same investment is held for more than a period of 1 year, such as let's say 3 years or 5 years, it is going to become a long-term investment. Similarly, how you're going to value, whether you're going to value these investment in terms of fair value or whatever is being existent in terms of the current market value of these investments. So these are very small concepts which you have to understand, and these are just the methods of valuation. So ideally speaking, without having the syllabus of investments as a in terms of numericals, it's a bit difficult to understand it. But if you understand these concepts and these conditions, that how are they going to value, that is going to be more than sufficient for you, because majority of the time the questions are going to be stick towards writing a short note. So if you are able to elaborate onto these small concepts, that will be more than sufficient. And of course, some conditions as to, let's say, that investments are being held and then they are sold. So how are they going to be treated in terms of profit and loss account? How are they? What is the meaning of these concepts? What are these terms? And finally, how are they actually going to be treated if you're going to go for the accounting of these? These are the only 3 components which are covered under any accounting standard for that. So even if you have not done the numerical portion of that, you're not done accounting for that, if you're clear with these 3 segments, I think you'll be very good.
Yes. I think you've answered the question. There is another question which I think you've already answered. The question is, can we expect numericals in accounting standards? If yes, how to prepare for the same? Please guide. I think you've already answered it. Let's go to the third question. There are so many trade theories in international business. How to remember them, and what all things we have to cover in these theories?
Right. I think very relevant question. I think probably that question was for management that we'll be taking up, but I'm also taking up for this particular session also. So rightly pointed out, there are in all 8 trade theories. 4 of them are the traditional theories, and the next 4 are the modern trade theories. Now, if I specifically talk about, there are 3 segments that have to be covered in these trade theories. One is, when did they actually come? What were their basic concept? That is going to be the first part. Second part is going to be that how are they relevant in today's concept. Because if you see the asking style of questions of UPSC, even if they're asking a very generic kind of a question in terms of trade theory, they would put a question, they would tag a question along that are these trade theories relevant in the current context or not. So you, after understanding the basic of that theory, the basic concept of that theory, you should also be very clear as to whether that particular theory is applicable in the current times or not. Let me just give you an example to explain it to you. Let's say we pick up a very basic theory such as mercantilism theory given by David Hume. So he talked about that during those times, every country should focus upon accumulation of lots and lots of wealth in terms of metals, be it gold or silver. Now, the premise of this is that during those time, it was a very evident and a good move in order to collect a lot of wealth and provide prosperity to any kind of a country. But if we see today, and if we see today in terms of the implication of inflation, if any country has a lot of accumulation of wealth or let's say money supply, then that is certainly going to put a lot of pressure on inflation. And ultimately, the exports are going to go down, and the balance of payment crisis is going to happen. That has already happened once in the year 1991. So ideally, if we talk about mercantilism, this particular theory is not prevalent or is not going to be useful in the current context. Now, the third element that you have to cover is, so first is going to be the basic concept. Second, whether they are applicable in the modern times or not. If yes, then how? If not, then how? And third is going to be whether there are any kind of criticism related to that particular theory or not. So if so that you're able to put forward your argument also that how is the theory useful, whether it is currently applicable or not, and finally, if there are any kind of criticism for that, whether you are able to address them or not. So you will be able to put forth a holistic answer. So I think these are the three important dimensions that you have to cover for all of these 8 theories. I think if you're covering them holistically in a comprehensive manner, you will be able to write any kind of answer.
देखो पढ़ना सब कुछ पड़ेगा in short that's what he's trying to say and it's UPSC so you cannot have shortcuts. ये आपका graduation का exam नहीं है where you can cover some things and leave some things and still make it through the examination. It's a competitive examination called as the mother of all examinations in India. And the first rule UPSC 101 जिसको मैं बोल सकता हूँ that is cover the syllabus. You're done with the syllabus, you have fought 90% of the battle is done, only 10% is left. Okay, that is something that I can easily say with all the experience of the past 5 6 years. Okay, last question. I am facing problem in amalgamation chapter where there are transfer of reserves, goodwill and creation of capital reserve. I think Harneet sir is a better judge, better teacher to answer this because he's an expert in amalgamation. But if you have anything at all you want to share, you can.
I think, see, the basic idea is that you have to understand it holistically, that whether, how are you making a transfer? It's a very simple rule. For example, let's say you talked about goodwill and everything. If the purchase consideration, to put it very simply in terms of the accounting treatment of the journal entry, let's say the purchase consideration is 5 lakh rupees and the assets that you have acquired is, let's say, 4 lakh rupees. So you're making an additional payment of 1 lakh rupees. Now, whether, how is this additional payment, for what you're making this additional payment, you have to think it logically. कि ये 1 लाख की extra payment मैं किस चीज के लिए कर रहा हूँ? This, in terms of transfer, this excess amount of 1 lakh that you're paying in terms of purchase consideration is your goodwill, because of which you're paying. Similarly, on the contrary, let's say the assets are more and you're making less payment, then certainly you're earning some amount of money, which is a kind of a capital profit, because आपको asset ज्यादा मिल गए, आपको pay कम करना पड़ा. Now, any balance that is left, let's say, keeping it the same example, that 1 lakh is going to be transferred to a capital reserve because it's a capital profit. So you have to understand it in a very conceptual manner. If you're thorough with this basic concept, you will not face problem in passing out the entries.
Perfect. I think बिल्कुल सही बात बोली है शुभम. And ठीक है, I think some students have put forward their questions. If any student watching this session wants to know more about the courses, know more about where to reach us, you can check out the description. वहाँ पे Telegram channel, Telegram group का link डला हुआ है. And you can also visit the website www.anujindal.in. You can easily reach out to me, reach out to Shubham sir through our contact numbers. Uh, The combined number that we have is 999994662225. You can call on this number. You can reach out to us, and you can also visit the website. Through the website, you can check out the courses on UPSC Commerce and Management as well. Okay. If you have any doubts regarding these optionals or anything related to UPSC, you can, without any worries, reach out to us, and we'll be very happy to clear your doubts. Anything else, Shubham sir, that you would like to say before we finish off?
So I would just like to add on, as Hadith sir has always been telling, that when it comes to practical subjects, once you have understood the basic concept, once you have covered the syllabus, as sir you already pointed out, it's more about how well you have practiced things. सिर्फ ऊपर ऊपर से पढ़ लेने से काम नहीं चलेगा. You will have to practice them continuously, because
Hmm.
the questions are going to be, every time they're going to be different. They're not going to be repeated on the same lines.
Hmm.
So एक बार अगर उन्होंने कैपिटल रिजर्व पे पूछा तो हो सकता है अगली बार गुडविल पे पूछ ले. So you
Hmm.
have to practice a lot of questions when it comes to subjects like financial accounting, financial management, in these all.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
practice as much as possible. I think that should be the key in terms of practical subjects.
Hmm. 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 यस, आई थिंक ही इज़ राइट. प्रैक्टिस जितना करोगे उतना बेटर है. एंड स्पेशली इन यूपीएससी कॉमर्स अगर हम देखें ऑप्शनल में, फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट में, द ट्रेंड हैज़ बीन टू आस्क क्वेश्चंस वर्थ 160 मार्क्स.
Mm.
उसमें से 70-80 मार्क्स का इजीली प्रैक्टिकल होता है.
Mm.
तो
Mm.
उतना करके जाने जाएंगे आप तो वो मार्क्स आपके लूज नहीं होंगे. अदरवाइज यू माइट एंड अप मेसिंग अप योर पेपर. Accounts, FM, these are the two areas most valuable for any UPSC commerce student. So please don't take it lightly. Okay. Saloni has a question. A day before yesterday's result came out and I did not clear. I have commerce optional and I am a chartered accountant. I don't know what's the reason behind not getting selected. वो तो आपके marks आएंगे तब पता लगेगा. और आपका जो खुद का एनालिसिस होगा उससे पता लगेगा कि भाई गलती कहाँ हुई है. बट आई वुड लाइक टू से वन थिंग. यहाँ पर सच बोलना, ऑनेस्टली बोलना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. और मैंने ये बहुत सारे सीए स्टूडेंट्स में देखा है कि आप लोग प्रैक्टिकल सब्जेक्ट्स को, क्योंकि प्रैक्टिकल सब्जेक्ट्स की बात हो रही है, तो प्रैक्टिकल सब्जेक्ट्स को लाइटली लेते हो, क्योंकि बिकॉज यू हैव दिस आइडिया दैट आई नो इट. और थ्योरेटिकल सब्जेक्ट्स जो होते हैं उनसे डर इतना ज़्यादा होता है बिकॉज यू नॉट read them thoroughly in your chartered accountancy. तो उनसे डर इतना ज़्यादा होता है कि लगता है कि ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा तो छोड़ देते हैं, या फिर उसमें एफर्ट उतना नहीं लगा पाते विद द थॉट कि प्रैक्टिकल में खींच लेंगे. ओके. सो इट्स अ डबल वैमी दैट यू क्रिएटिंग फॉर योर सेल्फ. आपने न्यूमेरिकल्स को लाइटली ले लिया और थ्योरी को छोड़ दिया, या थ्योरी को ये सोच के छोड़ दिया कि प्रैक्टिकल से मैं खींच लूंगी. ओके. तो हो सकता है, आई माइट बी रॉन्ग, कंप्लीटली रॉन्ग. यू माइट हैव स्कोर्ड वंडरफुली इन योर कॉमर्स ऑप्शनल. बट ऐसा मैंने प्रीवियस एक्सपीरियंस में देखा है. तो अगर ऐसा है so please work on it. Okay. I worked hard for it and got better marks in टेस्ट सीरीज. देखिए टेस्ट सीरीज आई वुड नॉट रेकमेंड कि आप टेस्ट सीरीज पे ब्लाइंडली ट्रस्ट करें. व्हाई? बिकॉज टेस्ट सीरीज चेक कौन कर रहा है? सारे स्टूडेंट्स को पता है कि टेस्ट सीरीज स्टूडेंट्स ही चेक कर रहे हैं. फिर भी स्टूडेंट्स आंख बंद करके टेस्ट सीरीज ले रहे हैं, and they're believing on the marks being awarded in the test series. भाई आपके जैसा ही दूसरा स्टूडेंट है, सलोनी अग्रवाल की जगह कोई सलोनी जैन बैठी होंगी वहां पर, who might be checking your paper and she might be a UPSC aspirant just like you. तो how can you believe her decision over yours कि आपको कितने नंबर मिलने चाहिए? राइट. आई होप यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग दिस. तो इसके लिए हमने एक तरीका सोचा था जिसको हम जल्दी ही स्टार्ट करेंगे. Probably after prelims of this year we are going to start it, where we will make you write a questions answer in front of us live online. आप लिखेंगे और हम तभी के तभी रियल टाइम में चेक करके आपको वापस देंगे. तो उससे आपको यू विल अंडरस्टैंड द अप्रोच ऑफ एन एग्जामिनर, कि एग्जामिनर की अप्रोच क्या होती है चेक करने के लिए एग्जाम में आपके क्वेश्चन को. वो अगर आप अप्रोच सीख गए एक बार, देन यू योरसेल्फ कैन आल्सो चेक योर ओन आंसर्स. आपको जरूरत नहीं है किसी और की. यू विल नॉट बी हैंडीकैप्ड एनीमोर. ओके. तो वो करने की कोशिश करेंगे सो दैट यू कैन इम्प्रूव योर स्कोर इन रियलिटी. ऐसा नहीं कि खाली टेस्ट सीरीज में बढ़ रहे हैं, एक्चुअल में भी आपके स्कोर्स बढ़े. ओके. सलोनी, हो सकता है आपके जीएस में नंबर कम रहे हो, वी डोंट नो येट, बट इफ़ यू रीविजिट द पेपर, अगर आप प्रॉपरली पेपर देखेंगी ना, इस बार का कॉमर्स पेपर आसान था काफ़ी। अगर आप पेपर को अच्छे से देखेंगी, हर एक क्वेश्चन के आंसर को रिप्रोड्यूस करने की कोशिश करेंगी, अ, आपको खुद पता लग जाएगा 2-3 दिन में कि कहाँ गलती हुई। मैंने देखा है बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स, आई थिंक 99.9% स्टूडेंट्स डोंट डू दिस एक्सरसाइज, बट वी शुड। आराम से पेपर के साथ बैठो, 2 दिन लगाओ, 3 दिन लगाओ, और जो भी क्वेश्चन आपके सामने आता है, जो भी पूरा पेपर है, उसको रिप्रोड्यूस करो, थिंकिंग कि मैंने आंसर में क्या लिखा था। लेट्स ट्राई एंड रिमेंबर व्हाट डिड आई राइट, ओके। और इवन इफ आई डोंट रिमेंबर, व्हाट वुड आई हैव रिटन, अगर अभी मैं ये आंसर कर रही होती तो मैं क्या लिखती। और फिर वो बाद में चेक करके देखो कि भाई सही लिखा है, गलत लिखा है, क्या लिखा है। या फिर किसी और से चेक कराओ, शुभम सर से चेक करा लो, ही इज देयर ऑन टेलीग्राम, ओके। आपको पता लग जाएगा खुद ही कि कहाँ आप लैग कर रहे हो। आई होप दैट आंसर्स योर क्वेश्चन, ओके। यू हैव टू मूव फॉरवर्ड एंड यू हैव टू फिगर आउट अ वे टू अंडरस्टैंड योर वीकनेस, और ये 2-3 स्टेप्स आपको लेने शुरू करने पड़ेंगे। शुभम सर, अनुराग हैज अ क्वेश्चन, हाउ टू बी एन असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर इन IIMs? I think
I
you
think
can answer this.
I think this is a very interesting question. So if you see any notification from any IIM, so recently there was a notification from IIM Bodh Gaya, which is in Bihar. So ideally, people think that okay, PhD kahin se bhi kar li, the degree has been taken, so the work is over. But since you're asking specifically about IIMs, तो IIMs अपने ब्रोशर में नोटिफिकेशन जब वो निकालते हैं रिक्रूटमेंट में, तो उसमें बहुत क्लियरली लिख देते हैं that you are only eligible to apply if you have papers published, so and so numbers of papers published in so and so category. So if I clearly talk about I am both Gaya, they clearly mentioned that we require 3 publication in ABDCC listed journal, either 2 publication or B listed journal, or 1 publication in A listed journal. So even if you have done with your PhD, you're a fresher, this is the kind of research publication that would be required for any IIMs. And even if I talk about, apart from IIM Bodh Gaya is a very new IIM in terms, if you talk about any experience, a very popular IIM, let's say IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, or Calcutta, this requirement is going to be further go higher. So in sense, if you want to work as an assistant professor in IIMs specifically, then your research publication has to be very, very good. At least of this benchmark that at least you have 6-7 papers in ABDC listed journal in all. Then only you will qualify to apply for an interview. This is just a screening process to get you in till the interview process. And of course, after getting there, how do you perform in your interview? What is your specialization, your level of understanding that is going to help you get selected. So these are the 2 prerequisites in order to become an assistant professor at IIMs.
I think he's answered the question well. चलिए, we have another session lined up at 5:30 for UPSC management. तो आपके अगर UPSC management के कोई doubts हैं तो वो हम उस session में उठा लेंगे फिर से. All the best, guys. Take care. All the best, Saloni. I am very, very sure you're going to make it. Just do not lose hope and keep studying. Figure out your problems and you'll be good to go.
All the best.